When night falls and sound withdraws, the archive remains. The night is long, the air is still. Only what must continue, continues. The surface is not the color it began as. What began as the warm red gold of new copper, the color that copper is, the color that light finds when it meets this metal freshly, before time has had any say in the matter, has become something else, not all at once, not by any single event, by a sequence of changes so gradual that no one moment of the change was visible, each step imperceptible, the accumulation detectable only in comparison. What the surface was against what the surface is now. The metal beneath is unchanged. The copper in the interior of the object, below the depth the air has reached, untouched by the years of atmosphere, retains its original character, its color, its properties, the material as it was when it was cast or worked into its current form. The interior has been held in place by everything that formed above it. The interior knows nothing of what has happened at the surface. The surface knows everything. The surface is where the atmosphere arrives, where oxygen meets copper, where moisture, carrying dissolved carbon dioxide from the air, contacts the metal, and the chemistry that the contact makes possible begins. The surface is the boundary where the metal and the world negotiate, where the conditions outside meet the material inside, and the result of that meeting accumulates layer by layer into what is now visible as color. True wisdom cannot be captured in words. It is found only in the silence between them. The first layer formed quickly, as these things go. Copper in fresh air oxidizes. The outermost copper atoms bond with oxygen, forming a thin film of copper oxide within hours of exposure. This first film is too thin to produce visible color. The underlying copper still shows through, the red gold still present, the change detectable only by instruments sensitive to the chemistry of the outermost atomic layers. The metal appears unchanged. The change is already underway. The first oxide layer alters what comes next. Copper oxide is not copper. It does not react with oxygen the way copper does. The oxide surface is less reactive than the metal surface. The bonds already formed providing less opportunity for further bonding. The reaction slows not to zero, but to the rate that the new surface permits. Oxygen must now interact with an oxide surface to continue the transformation, and the oxide surface presents fewer available sites for reaction than the metal surface did. The rate of change decreased because the change had already occurred. What follows depends on what the air brings. Moisture carries what the atmosphere contains, dissolved gases, the residue of distance, whatever the air has passed through on its way to this surface. These arrive at the metal in solution, react with what the oxidation has already built, and leave their own compound in place of what they found. Each compound is a different color. The first change darkens, brown deepening toward black at the points of greatest exposure, the earliest record, the oxidation that came before anything else. Then, given moisture and time and the carbon the air carries, green begins to appear, not all at once, not evenly, but at the places where conditions were most favorable, spreading outward from those points as the years accumulate. The green deepens where the moisture consistently gathered. Near the sea, there are blues in it. In cities, other compounds enter the record, other colors, the atmosphere writing its particular chemistry into the surface. The color of the surface is the record of what the air contained, not the air today. The air across the years the surface has been exposed, the accumulated atmosphere, the record of every condition the surface has encountered. Urban air leaves a different patina than rural air. Coastal air leaves a different patina than inland air. The same metal exposed in different places develops differently, the variation in color and texture encoding the variation in the atmosphere each surface has experienced. The surface does not describe where it has been. It becomes where it has been. Breath enters. Breath leaves. Between breaths, the air holds its density. The color is not uniform across the surface. Where moisture collected, in a crevice, at the base of a relief, in any depression that held water longer than the flat surrounding surface, the reaction proceeded further. The compounds there are thicker, the color deeper, the layer more developed than on the exposed faces that dried quickly after each rain. Where the surface faced away from the weather received less direct rainfall, dried faster, the patina is thinner, lighter in color, closer to the early stages of the conversion. The surface holds a map of its own exposure. Every variation in color corresponds to a variation in the conditions at that location. How much moisture reached it? How long it held that moisture? How many cycles of wet and dry the surface experienced at that point relative to adjacent points? The map is not precise. It does not record individual weather events. It records the aggregate, the tendency, the average behavior of the atmosphere at each location of the surface over the full duration of the exposure. It is a map of tendencies, not events. The deepest green is not where the heaviest rain fell on any particular day. It is where moisture consistently gathered year after year, because the geometry of the surface directed water to that point. A shallow depression, a horizontal ledge, the junction between two planes. These geometries collect water reliably, not dramatically, but consistently. And the consistency accumulates into depth of color that the exposed faces around them do not develop. The patina knows the geometry of the object. Not as knowledge, there is no knowing in copper carbonate, but as consequence, the chemistry ran where the conditions permitted it to run. The conditions were determined by the geometry, and the result is a surface whose color follows the geometry's logic. Where the object collects, the patina deepens. Where the object sheds, the patina remains thin. The surface is a rendering of the object's own form, written in the language of atmospheric chemistry, over the time the atmosphere has had to write it. Breath enters. Breath leaves. Between breaths, the air holds its density. The layers do not simply accumulate. Each layer changes the conditions for the formation of the next. The carbonate layer that forms on top of the oxide layer is less soluble than the oxide. It resists the acid that the moisture carries, resists conversion to other compounds, holds its structure against the chemistry that formed it. Where the carbonate layer is thick and continuous, it slows the reaction beneath it. The acid that would continue converting copper oxide to carbonate cannot reach the oxide easily. the rate of change decreases further. The layer protects what it covers. This is not protection in any design sense. The carbonate did not form in order to protect the metal beneath. It formed because the chemistry of copper oxide in a moist atmosphere containing carbon dioxide produces copper carbonate. The protection is the consequence of the chemistry, not its purpose. The carbonate exists because the conditions produced it. That its existence changes the conditions for what comes next, slowing the reaction, reducing the rate of further change, is not intention. It is what stability looks like from the inside. Breath enters, breath leaves. Between breaths, the air holds its density. A dense, continuous patina layer reaches a point where the surface has changed as much as these conditions will change it. The reactive metal beneath is covered so thoroughly that the atmosphere can no longer easily reach it. Further change requires different conditions, stronger acids, higher temperatures, the mechanical removal of what has formed. In ordinary air, in ordinary moisture, the surface rests at the depth it has reached, not permanently. Conditions change. The patina layer can crack under thermal expansion and contraction, opening pathways to the metal beneath. Mechanical abrasion can remove it. A change in the atmosphere's chemistry, more acid rain, more salt in coastal air, can dissolve compounds that were previously stable. The passivation is not a permanent state. It is the current equilibrium between the metal, its surface layers, and the conditions it currently faces. But in stable conditions, in ordinary air, it holds. The surface has found a temporary rest within its own transformation. Run a finger across the patina surface. The texture is not smooth, the way polished metal is smooth. The patina has its own topography. The irregular growth of the conversion compounds, the variation in layer thickness between areas of greater and lesser exposure, the points where cracks formed and were refilled, the surface of a material that grew by chemistry rather than by working. The texture is fine, mineral, closer to the surface of stone than to the surface of metal. Under the finger, the surface feels like settled time, not as metaphor, as physical fact. The patina layer has mass, has thickness, has the particular hardness of its constituent compounds. What the finger touches is not the copper that was worked into this shape. It is the result of years of atmospheric chemistry acting on that copper. The accumulated product of reactions that ran at different rates in different conditions, each reaction leaving its compound in place where it formed, the whole building up into a layer with its own physical character distinct from the metal it covers. The metal is beneath this. The original surface, the surface that was dressed or cast or hammered into its current form, the surface that carries the marks of the work that made it, is not accessible to touch. It is buried under the patina, preserved under the patina, the same surface it was when it was made, but no longer in contact with the air, no longer reactive, held in its original condition by the very layer that formed on top of it. The patina both covers and preserves. What it covers is the original surface. What it preserves is the same original surface. The covering and the preserving are the same action. The chemistry that conceals the metal also protecting it from the further chemistry that would otherwise continue to convert it. True wisdom cannot be captured in words. It is found only in the silence between them. In strong light, a freshly polished copper surface returns light with high intensity. The reflection is specular. The surface, prepared to a fine smoothness, returns light in a coherent direction, the way a mirror returns light, the way any smooth surface returns light, when the surface irregularities are smaller than the wavelength of the light striking them. The color of the return is the characteristic red gold of copper, the light that the copper's electron structure absorbs subtracted from white light, the remainder returned as the color that copper's atomic configuration determines. This surface is the metal's present tense. The patina surface reflects differently. The conversion compounds scatter light. Their crystalline structure, their varied orientation, their surface irregularities at the scale of the compound's own growth, all of these distribute the incoming light across many angles rather than returning it in a single coherent direction. The surface is not dull in any deficient sense. It has its own luminosity, the soft, diffuse light of a surface that does not concentrate but disperses, that does not mirror but absorbs and returns in all directions equally. This surface is the metal's accumulated past. Both are surfaces. Both are the outermost layer of the same object. The polished surface is the metal itself at the boundary with the air. The patina surface is the compound that the boundary has produced over time. One is what the metal is. One is what the metal has become at the place where it meets the world. Neither is more the surface than the other. They are different kinds of surface, different depths of time made visible as color. Breath enters, breath leaves. Between breaths, the air holds its density. The object rests in the still air of this room. The patina surface faces the room's atmosphere. The air at its particular temperature, humidity, and composition. The air that has been exchanged with the outside through the small gaps in the structure. The air that carries what this night's air carries. The chemistry between the patina surface and this air is slow. The surface is largely passivated, its reactive sites occupied, its conversion compound stable under these conditions. What is occurring at the surface tonight is occurring at the rate of geological patience, below the threshold of any change that could be detected by morning. The surface holds, not forever. Nothing in chemistry is forever. Given sufficient time, given changes in the conditions, a century of rain more acid than tonight's, a different atmosphere, the simple mechanical wearing of what passes near the surface. The patina will change further. The compounds will convert to other compounds. The layer will grow or be removed. The chemistry will proceed in whatever direction the future conditions determine. Tonight the conditions are stable. Tonight the surface is as it is. Tonight the object rests in the color that the years produced, holding that color the way all things hold their current state. Not by effort, not by decision, but by the simple fact of being what the time made them, in the conditions that currently surround them, until the conditions change. The green that is visible at the surface is the same green that was visible last year, the same green that will be visible next year, the color of a compound that has reached the stability its chemistry permits in this atmosphere, the layer beneath the green, the darker oxides closer to the metal, the transition zone between the original surface and the outermost patina, holds its own colors in the dark, invisible but present, the earlier record beneath the later record, the first years of exposure below the decades of slow stabilization. The object is a stratigraphy, not the stratigraphy of rock, which records millions of years in layers of sediment. The stratigraphy of a single object's exposure to a single atmosphere over the years of its particular existence. Each layer is a period. Each color is a chemistry. The sequence from metal surface outward to outermost patina is a sequence in time. From the moment of making to the present, each layer the record of the conditions that formed it, all of them present simultaneously in the cross-section of a surface too thin to see with the naked eye. The layers cannot be separated without destroying what they record. To remove the patina is to remove the record. The original surface would be exposed, clean, reactive, the copper as it was before any of this began. But the record of the years would be gone, the compounds dissolved or abraded away, the chemistry that took decades to produce undone in an afternoon. The original surface and the record of time cannot coexist if the original surface is to be seen. One must be sacrificed for the other. Most objects are not stripped. Most objects are left. The patina remains because removing it would cost what it contains. What it contains is not beauty in any simple sense. It is information. It is duration. It is the physical record of the object's particular existence in its particular place over its particular span of years. To remove the patina is to choose the original surface over the history of the surface. The choice is irreversible. Once the patina is gone, the decades it recorded are not recoverable. The patina is not what was done to the object. The patina is what the object and the world made together, at their boundary, over the time they have been in contact. The object provided the metal. The world provided the atmosphere. The boundary between them provided the conditions. What formed there formed because of all three, and what formed there is now the surface, is now the color, is now the layer that the finger touches when it moves across what has become of the original metal's face. The surface that took time is the record of the time it took. True wisdom cannot be captured in words. It is found only in the silence between them. When night falls, the archive remains.